करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। Okay, so now we are in the topic. I don't want to, in fact, if you go through the text, it is going to be yet another revision of this Upadhi and Upahita concept, right? So, but what we saw last two times is that this is what we call Upahita. In this particular example, why? Because Upahita is defined as that which as though takes on the attribute of something which it has proximity to, right? So that means this was appearing as green if I place it, only when I place it here, not just like that, right? So this becomes what? Upadhi. It as though lends its attribute to this glass. Okay, so and if this also is an Upadhi, because it as though lends its redness to the glass. Okay, and Upahita is that which never actually takes on the attribute, but it appears to be taking the attribute. Okay, so what we saw is that this Upahita is what? Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. Okay, so that means that awareness, okay, now it has two different Upadhis. Which are the two different Upadhis? One is what it says, Avidya Upadhihi san Atma Jiva iti Uchyate. Okay, so that means that this awareness, when it is as though confined to one body and mind, okay, it is what we call Jiva. Jiva means an individual. Sorry? I don't know which page. I have a different book, so I am on page 36. Okay, so that is what we call Jiva. Jiva is the individual. Okay, so the other Upadhi that the same awareness has is Maya Upadhi. What is this Maya Upadhi? It is the potential for this awareness to come into in form of the whole universe. Okay, so that is what we call Maya Upadhi. Okay, so this Upahita Chaitanya, which is awareness, is free from both. In order to understand this reality, we gave an example. A very good example is that of water, wave, and the ocean. Okay, the same water, when it appears as the ocean, it is what we call, is equivalent to Ishvara. Okay, the same water, when it appears as one individual wave, is equivalent to an individual Jiva. Okay, now water itself is free from being both. Okay, oceanness doesn't belong to water, waveness also doesn't belong to water. Water is free. Okay, but when you look generally, where is your attention? You give more reality to the forms than the content, right? This is exactly the problem is, right? We give more reality to forms than to the content. What Upanishads say is that the content is the most important, forms are just mithya. Okay, that is the whole basic thing about Upanishad. Okay, we only see forms and we give reality to, and we don't see the content. And content is the only thing, because if you pay attention to the content, what is it? There is only water. There is no second thing. Okay, and not only that, but that water, while appearing as the smallest wave and big wave and the ocean, it is always free from everything. Okay, so that is what we call moksha, the freedom. Okay, that is something which is amazing. Okay, in and through. Do you need to break the waves in order to understand that there is water? Do you need to manipulate the waves? You don't have to do anything. This is the trick. Exactly. So the whole teaching is cognitive. Okay? All the time we are so used to manipulating our mind, manipulating our body. So that means you think that you have to do something. That whole orientation is you have to do something. You have to make this bigger. You have to make this better. This is our orientation. Okay? What the reality is that you don't need to make anything bigger or better. It is already free. This is the vision. Okay? Water, you don't need to do anything to water. Water, while appearing in all these different forms, it is free. That is really the teaching of Upanishads. Okay? Now, here he is saying, so there are two sides. One is Jiva and the other one is Ishvara. Okay? So here he says, because they are what? Two upadhis, two upahita, tasmat karanat na jiveshwaryoho buddhihi bheda buddhihi svikaryaha. Okay? It says, if you understand, okay, the wave and the ocean are nothing but water, okay, from that buddhi, okay, you don't accept the real difference between what? The wave and the ocean. Okay? From what standpoint? From the standpoint of water. Okay? So here he asks a very important question. In answer to this question is the crux to understanding Vedanta accurately. Because people make so many mistakes in understanding this equation. So this next few sentences explain the nature of equation. Okay? So here he is asking a question. Nanu is a question. Okay? Here he says, Sa ahankarasya kinchidnyasya jivasya nirahankarasya sarvajnasya ishvarasya tattvamasi iti mahavakyat katham bheda buddhihi syat ubayoho viruddha dharma krantaktvat. Okay? Here he is saying, now tattvamasi is a sentence which is what we call Mahavakya. It is from Chandogya Upanishad. Okay? So now what does this sentence say? It says Tat is that, which is what? The cause of the universe. Okay? And generally what is, it's a pronoun, right? That. Okay? Why is it a pronoun? Why is it that pronoun and not this pronoun? Because generally the cause of the universe, where do you think the cause of the universe is?
Outside.
Exactly. Right? So that means our orientation is that the cause of the universe is outside me. So that means and somewhere remote. So that's why you use a pronoun that. Okay? And this is the orientation that we have, okay, which is not totally true. What the Mahavakya says is that which you think is remote from you, and tvam. What is tvam? You. Okay? And asi is a verb which what? Equates tat with tvam. Tat is that which is the cause of the universe, which you think is away from you, okay, and you, and it says in fact there is no difference. There is an equation. Okay? This equation is a big thing to understand. Okay? So therefore in any equation he is asking a question. He is asking, how are you equating Tvam is you, the individual, with Ishvara, the cause of the universe? He is saying it's impossible. That equation is impossible because why? He is saying you, the individual, is what? Has very little knowledge and has very little capacity to manipulate the world. And that Tat is, as we saw, Maya Upadhi is what? The entire capacity to manifest the whole universe, right? And to run the whole universe. He's saying, how can there be an equation between the individual and the total, which is Ishvara? What is Ishvara? He says it is all knowledge and all power, and the individual has limited knowledge and limited power. So how is it that the Upanishads have equate the two? The two sides look very different.
The Tvam, what would you say? Tvam means the total you, right? No?
Exactly. So that means who's that you, right? So this is what he will explain. He will explain. So how is this equation? He's asking this question. Okay, he's asking this question. How is this equation possible? Okay. So now here he says, iti. The answer is iti chet na. Okay. Here he says, sthula sukshma sharira abhimani tvam pada vachyartaha upadhi nirmuktam samadhi dashat sampannam shuddha chaitanyam tvam pada lakshyartaha. Okay, it is a very important thing that he is saying here. Okay, what he is saying is that when I say you, okay, there is one thing which is the immediate meaning of what you think you are. What is that you?
The Jiva Avtar.
Exactly. Right? When I say you, then you only mean what? Me, the little body, the Sukshma Sharira Abhimani. Okay? Sukshma Sharira Abhimani means this person who has special connection, or I am this body and I am this mind, and this is what you think you are. If this is what we call Vachyartha. Vachyartha means the immediate meaning. When I use the word you, okay, this is the immediate meaning or the literal meaning that you have. The word you conveys that meaning to you. Okay, but now what has Upanishad done? It has taken you from Vachyartha to Lakshyartha. What is Lakshyartha? The intended meaning. The intended meaning. So the whole inquiry about Atma Tarhi Kaha. What is Atma? It took you from where? From your understanding of what Atma is, which is your little body and your little mind, to what Upanishads or what Tattva Bodha wanted to convey to you as your true nature.
So what's the Vakyasha?
Vachyartha means it is the literal meaning. Okay? Lakshyartha means the intended meaning. Implied meaning, the intended meaning. Okay? So that means the whole teaching is what? To take you from what you think you are, which is this little body and mind, to the intended meaning of what you actually are. Exactly. Okay? So what did the teaching say? You are not this physical body, because this physical body is nothing but atoms, right? And they are cells, and you are not that. You are not also the mind, because mind is nothing but thoughts. Okay? And the thoughts come and go. You are that awareness, right? So that means they used the word Tvam, you, and they moved you from your understanding of what you means, which is the body and mind, to the intended meaning. What they wanted to convey by you? Awareness. Excellent.
So that's why Tat equals Tvam.
Exactly. Right? So that means, understand this, please understand, right? So that means in using, there is an equation. Tvam and Tat. What he is saying is the immediate meaning of Tvam is obviously opposed to the cause of the universe. There is no equation. Right? What is the intended meaning of this Tvam Pada is the awareness. So the whole teaching is to take you from the body and mind I to you're putting your I in awareness where it actually belongs. Okay. Then he says that, okay, evam sarvagnatvadi vishishtam ishvaraha tat pada vachyarthaha. Okay. So now Tvam Pada has what? Vachyartha, which is individual, and what is the Lakshyartha? Awareness. Okay. Now let us look at Tatpada. What is our Vachyartha? The immediate meaning of the word Tat, the cause of the universe.
Somebody far away and we're small. For somebody far away.
Excellent. Right? So now, what is our Vachyartha actually can be very different. Right? Either we can think that there is no Tat at all. There are a lot of people who think that there is no cause of the universe. Okay? The second orientation that some people have is, it is, as Nandita says, it's somebody, an entity which is very far away from us. That is the second orientation. If you use Vedanta, what did we understand as the cause of the universe? It is what we said is what? The intelligence, exactly. Ishvara, which is where? It is everywhere. Exactly. Now, what we talked about Ishvara being everywhere is, what we said is Sarvajnaha Sarvashaktiman. It has all knowledge and it has all power. It has knowledge and power to manifest as the whole universe, and it is in the form of the manifest universe, right? Which is not only making each object in the universe manifest, but what? It connects different individuals through series of laws. Okay. So in the other class yesterday, I made them think about it. It's a very powerful mechanism. Okay. What connects you and me together? Tell me.
The basis of the fact that we are made of the same 5 elements.
Excellent. Right? Understand. This is amazing. One thing which connects us, you think about our connection. Okay. As Tushna says, that one thing which connects us very fundamentally is we are all made up of 5 elements. Akasha, Vayu, Agnihi, Apaha and Prithvi. Okay, all, everybody. And not only this body, but think about what? Bodies of animals, bodies of birds, bodies of reptiles, aquatic creatures, same 5 elements. Okay. Think about inanimate objects. Wood.
But even plastic.
Even, exactly. Yeah, they are all made up of 5 elements. So that means what connects us, these 5 elements, right? There is what? Series of laws which makes these 5 elements. We are nothing but combination of 5 elements, and still such a variety. Okay, and such a uniqueness. So how are these 5 elements, how are they connected through series of laws which manifest so differently? What other laws? What is it? What else is a connecting link between you and me?
Laws of nature.
Excellent, right? All of us have, not only we are made up of 5 elements, but laws of nature. One example is gravity. It applies to all of us equally. Okay, 100 years ago, today, 1000 years from now, what? The laws of gravity are going to apply. Okay, so that means that this is what we say the all intelligence. Understand, when we talk about Ishvara, we are talking about all these things. Not only the objects are made from these 5 elements and intelligently to give different forms, but each object is connected to the other object through series of laws. This is what Ishvara is. Otherwise, you think Ishvara, always you have some vague idea about what Ishvara is. Okay, so that means the laws of gravity, the physical laws, are manifestation of Ishvara. Understand? Okay, what other laws, what other things connect you and me? Think about it, it's amazing.
The awareness.
The awareness is much later. Now just think about Ishvara. Ishvara means that capacity, right, that knowledge which creates us all and connects us all together.
So then there are other laws, those infallible laws.
Exactly. What are those laws?
Dharma.
Excellent. Excellent. Right? Think about excellent. Okay? So now, before we go to dharma, it is true, very, very true. Before we go to that, the things which are connecting you and me are not only physical laws, there are laws of what we say biology. Okay? You go to a doctor today or tomorrow or 10 years from now, okay, and you go with a certain disease, and the doctor knows exactly what is happening. The doctor is seeing you for the first time. How?
Because of the laws of biology.
Excellent. Right? Because of the laws of biology. That means the person has gone and studied the laws of biology in medical school. He knows exactly human anatomy, knows the physiology. Okay? So that means it has knowledge of how the body is put together. What are the laws? Have they created the laws? They have not created the laws.
How the blood pumps, how all that.
Exactly. How the cells work.
And they are the same for all of us.
They are the same for exactly. In fact, the doctor did not even study it on human body. In medical school, they do it on rat.
Yeah.
Right? What is the big inference? That what works on one mammal works on other mammals. Oh my God. These are what we call the laws. Okay? Laws of biology, according to us, are manifestation of that intelligence which is Ishvara. Okay? A human being does not create knowledge. A human being is already put together. The human body is already put together. When we go to university, what do? We remove our veils. Veils within veils within veils. Right? So Sarvajna as Upadhi, Ishvara as an Upadhi is an incredible Upadhi. You have to understand it, you can't just skim over it. It is all the laws which govern the whole universe, connects us together. Okay? Physical laws is a manifestation of Ishvara. Biological laws are manifestation of that Ishvara already created. Right? What else?
Laws of karma.
Excellent. Right?
Isn't that
Before
part of
we...
infallible laws though?
Exactly.
Would that come under the same thing that she thought that?
Yeah, so she and they are talking about the same. She's talking about dharma, she's talking about karma, right? So there are two. So one is another law which connects us, which is very fundamental, and that is what? Laws of psychology. You go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist and you start telling your story. You think it's your very unique story. The psychologist can figure out a lot about what your background could be because of what half an hour talk that you give about your issue. How? The person is meeting you again for the first time. How? There are certain patterns and certain laws, right? They have studied those patterns. They have seen if these are the circumstances that you have had in your life, this is going to be your orientation. Then what do? Having understood how the laws work, they use this knowledge to intervene intelligently to help you within those laws. Nobody can bypass those laws. It's working through those laws. Intelligent. This is what we call intelligent living. You have to need to understand the laws because you're constantly subject to those laws. You can't afford not to understand the laws which you are governed by. Okay? Laws of physics connects us all together. Laws of biology connects us all together. Laws of psychology connects us all together. Then these are the things that we know. This is why we include them within Ishvara, the intelligence. So that's why in Vedic vision there is no such thing called material and spiritual. The whole thing is manifestation of Ishvara. that intelligence, when you see it from the standpoint of how the universe is organized in terms of the physical placement, you call it physical laws. The same intelligence, when you study from the standpoint of physiology, you call it medical sciences. The same intelligence, when you see in terms of how the plant kingdom is organized, you call it botany. You give it different names because the same intelligence, you are seeing it from one given standpoint. That's why you give it a specific name. Okay, so this is what is the vision of Ishvara. Vachyartha of Ishvara according to the Veda is not ordinary Vachyartha. Okay, it is all these series of laws that govern us and put us together and organize these 5 elements to make us who we are. That intelligence is incredible. And it's only one. How many intelligences are there? It's one intelligence, seen from different standpoints. Okay, this is where now, when it comes to me, that is something which is very important, because anybody can ask, if everything is following the laws of cause and effect, biology, physics, psychology and all, what do I have to do? What is my job? I'm just like a puppet who's programmed in this cause and effect relationship and I just have to live that? No. So that means you have one window through which not only you can live meaningfully in the world, but you can shape the world around you. What is that window?
Free will.
Free will.
Choice.
Excellent. Okay, you, by the same intelligence which has organized everything, you're endowed with a free will. Your free will is something which you have not created. It is something that is again what? There. That is part of that intelligence that exists. Okay, so that means that is a window that you have been given to what? Make choices about the kind of life that you are going to have within this universe which follows a certain law. You can either just waste away this free will by not even understanding what? That the laws and how they work and align your life to those laws, or you can be intelligent. And what you can do? You can understand the design and use it what? To navigate your life intelligently. That choice you have. Okay, so this is what we call the law of how there is a law which guides your free will. Free will is like having a car. Imagine car without a brake. It will be a disaster. Right? So free will comes along with certain understanding of what is right and what is wrong. That understanding is part of human program. This is what we call the law of dharma. Okay? Law of dharma, according to, for us, what is the basic difference between the Western, they study a lot ethics, right? They study ethics and we also talk about ethics. What is the basic difference?
There's a very sort of morally based ethics.
Exactly.
Very unidimensional.
Absolutely. Right? So that means the biggest focus is me and my responsibility. Okay? Just like how I can do something better and things like that. Here, the whole understanding of dharma is that there is a law. Just like you can't afford to ignore the laws of gravity, you also cannot afford to ignore laws of dharma because they are applying. Right? They are part of that design. That design means whether you acknowledge it or not, whether you are aware of it or not, it is constantly applying. Okay? So what is wise living? You need to know that it is applying and you need to align your life. Okay? So that means you can't justify Because your justification is not, the laws are never going to be, not going to change. Exactly. You can justify, but the laws will continue to apply. So the wise living is, you need to align your actions with those laws. Otherwise, who's the loser? You're the loser. Okay? I gave an example of a tree last time in this class. Now I have so many classes, I forgot which class I give, right? Okay. A tree is standing there. If you go and rub against it, who gets rubbed? You get rubbed in the process. You can say tree did it and it did not do it. Tree did it because what? Yeah, the bruise is because of tree. But did the tree run after you and did it? No. You chose your free will, right, to go and rub against it, and you got rubbed in the process. Laws are like that. Laws of dharma, and then as Saloni said, right, along with laws of dharma, what? You create through your actions, the causes, and then you, yeah, exactly. You experience different situations.
So,
Okay?
with
So,
your tree example, if there's like a thief who comes in and you're the loser, somebody's come and broken into your house and stolen your stuff, or somebody's been really mean, or whatever it is, you're still the loser. So how does your tree example, it's not that you proactively went to the thief and said, hey, come
No.
and steal my stuff, or
That's
hey,
true.
can you come and be mean to me?
no, that's true. What we are saying is that, see, sometimes what happens is, now I'll just give you, I don't want to, because what I want to show is that laws of cause and effect are at work. I will tell you, if you are, just to give you, just to give you an insight into, how the laws work. Okay, this is something that a friend of mine, she told me that the father had property, okay, in Khandala, and the father had taken the property in the name of his daughter, who is my friend. Okay. Now, her brother, what he did is, he says, this property, nobody's looking after, and this and that, and he says, now I'm going to sell the property. Okay. So he went to the broker and he did some research, and then I think after a while he sold the property. Okay. Now what happened is, whom should the money have gone to?
The daughter.
Exactly, to the daughter, because the property was in the name of the daughter. Okay. Now what happened is, he started saying, but I went to the broker and I did all this, so I need half the share. Okay. Now generally women are much more
Forgiving and
yeah, exactly. Right? So then she said, okay, now you take it, because she didn't want to put up a big fight, and she did not want to spoil the relationships and all that, so that means that she kind of didn't make a big noise, and she settled for her share without creating a big noise. This is a true story, by the way. Okay, so now when she told me this, I was like, my God. Right? So now she gets her share and he gets his share. Okay. Now when the property was sold, a lot of some amount was given in check and some amount was given in cash. Right? So this my friend, she got check and he kept cash. She said within 1 month there was somebody broke into the house, all the cash was stolen. His cash was stolen. This is what I said, my God. Right? So
But it doesn't always happen like this.
No, it doesn't all. But what I want to show you, you extend. This is just a small example. Exactly. Because if
No, it has to offset the cost.
exactly. one thing, because when that stealing happens, we don't connect. The person never reflects.
Felt like a victim.
He always feels like a victim. See this, and then they, oh yeah, my doorbell was like this, and we get all technical about how we could have prevented and how they came, and we get engaged in a totally different story. Exactly. Okay? We don't, and you're right, here it happened like very, very close enough, right? So that you can, and even though it happened close enough, the person didn't even connect at all. Right?
They just feel like a victim.
They always feel like a victim. They don't put together their life. People don't put together their life, and they don't say, oh my God, life it's an intelligent design. You become little perceptive, you will see how things are organized. It's incredible. Okay? It may not be as close in time, so that's why when it happens remote in time, it completely escapes. Even when it happens close in time, it escapes us if we are not ready.
Because this was directly related to the same problem.
Exactly. Absolutely.
It can happen health-wise or
Excellent. Excellent. Right? As Nisha is saying, it may happen in another form altogether.
But you don't escape
Which
it.
is the
But you don't escape it. Right? And then you always, as Priya says, you always feel like a victim.
But also, Nima, so often you hear people say that bad things happen to really good people.
This doesn't exist. Right? Behind this, there is this whole thing that life is unfair.
There's seen and unseen consequences.
Yeah, there are unseen consequences. It may be
Because
from a past
Actually,
You-
it has also
one has
happened
used
when you
their
admitted to something wrong and you're so scared of the consequences, but you've admitted to it, nothing happens. It's just normal.
in fact, we have
That you
That's
you
your
must,
part.
you
You're
must.
okay.
No, you must admit to it because it's a wrong thing. So you admit to it and then actually nothing happens, it pans out okay.
No, I mean, what we say is, we slightly make it, what you are saying is right, we make it slightly nuanced. What we say is, for things that you have done in the past, right, that like yesterday somebody came to me and said, I have done so much now, how to do? I said, there is something which is what we call prayashchitta karma. It's very sophisticated. Our whole thing is very sophisticated, right? Prayashchitta karma means things that you have already done and you can do exactly, right? There are specific rituals that you can do for having some things which are known to you, what you've done, and some things which are unknown to you.
There are remedies.
They're remedies. It's very specific. Okay? So that means just to acknowledge and use your free will now to what? To that order.
Balance out the
Exactly, to balance out.
Does it
Okay? A lot of people's charity or good acts, they also balance it out. This is why, absolutely. You help others. Sometimes when you are doing business, you can't always be 100% right? So what do? You may break some laws here, but you have to what? Do some act to compensate. It allows.
CSR.
Yeah, absolutely. It allows. At least you're doing it, right? At least you're doing it. At least you're recognizing that, hey, I have done something and I have to do something else to correct it, neutralize.
Yeah, Nima, if you use that, because some people that's what they continue doing the wrong and then they use that as a justification.
No, that is true. Yeah, as opposed to
That's what you're saying.
exactly,
So that
absolutely.
doesn't work.
So this is why we human beings are so clever. We want to bypass everything, right, and get the best that we can in the fastest way possible. But then the shortcuts don't work. The laws are there.
I have one question. Who's watching? Does it usually manifest in the same lifetime? Or
No. It doesn't.
Like you were saying, good things happen, bad things happen to good people. It may be from a previous
Absolutely.
lifetime.
Because
Which you are not really even
aware of. Exactly.
But there are many reasons for that also.
So
Everyone's suffering is bad, has been bad at some time.
So
I think suffering is also a way to learn. It's a
Absolutely.
to move forward. Also, it's not necessarily bad things happen to good people. That
No,
good
we
people
treat
are not
the
like
people
stuck
with
in
the-
some spot. They also
No,
have
I'm
to
just
move
saying
forward. So
I mean, if you feel like most people would know in their own conscience whether they've lived their life in the, in a way where, where you're okay.
Honest.
But if you feel you've lived your life in an honest way without, this thing, and said things happen, then how do you understand that it's coming from a past?
But then, if
Okay.
at least that's what I feel. I mean, again, you're limiting your life to the Jiva Upadhi, right? You're becoming unidimensional. But whereas you're connected to everything and everyone, so whatever's in your consciousness is also limited. You can't recall every single action that you've taken your whole life, right?
Yeah, obviously.
So then, how will you be able to say that, oh, I've generally led a good life? But there are things you've done, and I also think that, isn't it part of that challenge, that lowering the veil is the challenges that you get, and how you deal with them that will allow you to go forward, right?
yeah. See, one thing is, you don't need to, first of all, you must know that when I say unseen result, by definition you can't know it.
Yeah.
Right? By definition you can't know it. So just as you can't know in the future, you also cannot do in the past. Right? Now, the only thing that you need to understand is, now there are two options when things happen your way. Okay? There are two options as to how you can look at it. Okay? One thing is, things are unfair. Life is meaningless. Life is random. Life is meaningless. Or there is some reason behind it. There are two options when things happen. Okay? Now, which of the two is more in keeping with reality?
Obviously, the one that there's a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is a reason. Why? Because forget about dharma and karma. You look at anything in this world, find me one thing which is totally random, which is not connected through cause and effect relationship.
It can't exist.
It can't exist. Right? So that means all these laws that I'm talking about, these are all manifestation of Ishvara. Okay? That means in that there is so much intelligence. Every physical thing is so well placed. The human body is so well placed. Okay? The psychology is so well designed. If everything is so well designed, following a certain pattern, which is an extremely intelligent pattern, to assume that my life is just random, it is completely, in fact, you have to prove that it is random. I don't have to prove that there is an order. The evidence that there is an order far outweighs the assumption that there is no order. The onus is on you, not on me. If you observe the world, not only about karma and dharma, everything else. Okay? So therefore, you need to understand that there are laws of cause and effect. Just like in everything else, there are laws of the cause and effect operating. Here also the laws of cause and effect are operating. Okay? That is sanity, because that will prevent you, right, at present from getting into this whole cycle. Oh, I'm only good. There is no human being, by the way, who's only good. That doesn't exist. Okay? And there are no only bad human beings either. We are all mixture of the two. We are at times very good, very responsible. At times we are confused. And we do things which are not really appropriate. And what? The challenges that come in life are used for me to reflect on my behaviors and to grow. Right? It's not like getting stuck, oh, I must have done something bad. It's not like that. Once you say that there is some reason why I'm going through what I'm going through, then where is the whole thing? The focus is now, what can I do to help myself? That means life becomes very proactive, right, and not this blame game. Because otherwise we are caught in our blame game, and that renders us so helpless, victims, right? I'm great, and that picture itself is something which is so destructive. You deny your personal growth, your personal responsibilities. I'm great, but only the world is bad. That is ask Psychology 101. They will say you have to change your perception of the world, because within this paradigm you will never find a solution.
So the action that you need to take in that case is then to align yourselves according to the laws.
Exactly.
So that the future you can at least
Excellent.
align to the laws of Dharma.
Excellent.
So that is the action you.
That is the action that you have to focus on, right?
And you have to have the intelligence to know what the action is.
Absolutely, right? I have seen two people, undergoing very difficult situations. Like they lose their spouse or their, somebody very dear at a very early stage of their life. That is a huge trauma. That trauma is something that I have no words to even console somebody, right? Because it's too big. Okay, but even then, I have seen people who've gone through those circumstances and their eyes shining. How? Shining means sparkling eyes, not this heavy, loaded eyes. How? Helping others, right? They have healed themselves by doing things for others, and they have exactly. Okay, that means that wound is there, the memories are there. Nobody can erase that, right? But you have used those circumstances in life to achieve something, right? To find a bigger meaning. You have to, like Einstein says, that generally what happens is that you have a problem, and the problem happens here in this paradigm, and you try to look for a solution within this paradigm. Doesn't exist. He says the only way to solve the problem is to step out and see a bigger picture, and then do what needs to be done. Vedanta is exactly like that. See a bigger picture. Okay? Otherwise, we get stuck with our pet ideas, and we start believing in them, and they start seeming right, and we miss this whole big reality, which is it's so much there, and still it escapes us. Like that brother, it was so much told to him that what he did was right, and it still escaped him. Okay, so therefore, this is how we are blinded by our own ignorance.
We allow things to just escape us.
We allow exactly. Right? And we continue to what? In fact, there is a very nice, I read an article somewhere, and that was, I think what Dinky is saying, that this is an interesting thing, that somebody, when Isaac Newton, he was very big, he was a giant, right, in his time, a physicist. Okay? Now, there were some other physicists who were looking at his work, and they were saying that, but actually, he's not very honest when he looks at the data. Almost 30% of the data that he gets, he ignores if it doesn't fit into his own paradigm. Okay, so there was this lady who was another very famous physicist. She was appointed to examine. Okay, is it true, this kind of accusation, and so is it something which is valid or not? Okay, so she started looking at Newton's work, his theories, and the data that he had, and she actually found, she says it's true that 30% of the data which did not fit into what he wanted to prove, he ignored. Right? So she went to him and she confronted him, and she said, this is what I found. And he says, yeah, but he did not even he was not apologetic, he was highly defensive about it.
He was not.
He was, right? Then she went to his research assistants and all, and they were also highly defensive about it. Okay. Then she went to this whole big community of scientists, and she kind of presented a case, and they also because he was such a big name, right? They defended him and not paid much attention to her. Okay, there is a very interesting story to show, even at that level, how selective we are about the data that we take in and the meaning we give to that data. And that person used this example to show, now come back to us.
But in this case, it was a good thing. He was able to prove gravity.
He's
Yeah, and equal and opposite reactions and all basic things have all come from nature.
That's true, that's true. But in spite of that, so
Steve Jobs, they say, had distorted reality.
exactly. So what I'm saying is, some of the biggest brains they ignore, right? That is what we are saying is, I'm saying something quite subtle. I'm not saying he's bad or he's good or anything. But then what about us? Right? How much we create the reality based on
What we want to see.
exactly,
Yeah,
right? So many things happen, and we don't even we think that, oh, that was something so bad, 30% was ignored. How much are we ignoring? It would come to about 70% or 80%.
And then you
So
justify.
then with this 20%, you create your reality, and you continue to look for only selected data which reinforces that, and you ignore the rest 80%. This is how we live. And we are so sure about this 20% being 100%.
And then you say why.
And then we say why. Exactly. Right? So that means this whole wisdom is just expanding your brain to see some things that you have been ignoring which are there. Okay? So therefore, Ishvara means the existence of Ishvara is not an imagination, it's not a belief. Please understand. All these different laws are manifestation of that Ishvara. You have no choice but to incorporate that presence, okay, in your living and in your decision making. If you don't incorporate that, what will be the result? You will make statements like, okay, I have been honest, but honesty doesn't pay. What this particular statement is what? Not understanding of laws of dharma and karma. Okay? Or good people, no, bad people get away with things. Again, a statement. Or bad things happen to good people. These are all statements of non-understanding of laws of dharma and karma. Okay? Laws of dharma are there, but they will escape your understanding until the time that you're a little bit more careful in and more refined in looking at the world. What is very apparent will give you this kind of highly erroneous, like 20%, and you keep on feeding that 20% and thinking that this 20% is the reality, and you ignore the rest. This is human behavior. This is human tendency. Okay, so therefore it's important. Okay, this is all what we call manifestation of Ishvara. Okay, so therefore that upadhi is very different, right? That all laws are you. What is the vachyartha of you, the individual? What is the vachyartha of Ishvara? That intelligence which makes us all, what, from 5 elements gives us all these amazing form, and that intelligence which what also governs our coexistence through series of laws. This is that intelligence, Sarvajnaha Sarva Shaktiman Ishvara. So where is the equation? In Vachyartha, the literal meaning, there is no equation. Is there an equation? Not at all. Right? But where is the equation? In the intended meaning. Excellent. Lakshyartha. Excellent. Okay? So therefore, here he says, okay, now sarvagnatwadi vishishtam ishwarasya tatpada vachyarthaha. Tatpada is Ishvara. What is the Vachyartha? Sarvagnatva. Sarvagna means all knowledge which has the power to manifest as the whole universe. Okay. But what is the Lakshyartha? Upadi Shunya Shuddha Chaitanyam Tatpada Lakshyartha. Okay. As Saloni says that just as you, who was this individual, right, was shown what is the intended meaning of this Lakshyartha, Twampada, awareness. Okay. Now you ask one more question, that this intelligence, which is what we call all intelligence, okay, which is manifesting in the universe through these series of laws, okay, what is the relation, what is the true nature of that intelligence?
It's like the wave and the ocean, and then the essence is awareness.
Excellent, excellent. Right? So therefore you say, just as my little intelligence requires what? Presence of awareness. Without awareness there is no little intelligence. Okay? The all intelligence also requires presence of what? Awareness. Without awareness there is no little intelligence or all intelligence. Just like without the presence of water there is no wave, there is no ocean. Okay, so that means that even what is the Lakshyartha of that all intelligence? Lakshyartha of all intelligence is also the same awareness. One awareness, when it is what? Seen from its capacity to project the universe, we call it Ishvara. Okay? And the same awareness, when we see it from what? It's as though confinement into one human body, we call it Jiva. Okay? Awareness is free from both. Where is the equation? The equation is in the intended meaning, not in the literal meaning. Okay, so that means very, very important thing to understand, right? If you make a resolution, if you make an error in a resolution point, you are on an imaginary mode. Okay, if you begin to say that when I say the wave equals ocean, okay, and if you start believing that the wave as a form is equal to the ocean form, you are misguided. Okay, what is the point of resolution? Not the form, the content, the water. Okay, even when a wave understands and says, I am the ocean because everything is water, the form, does it change? No. Right? The form remains, the wave still has a waveform. And in terms of form, it is different from the ocean form. We are not trying to resolve the forms. What we are trying to see is the content. Exactly. And the apparent differences still remain. Okay? So the wave can enjoy the ocean. Doesn't have any problem. Okay, recognizes the entity ocean, recognizes other entities, other waves. It is not like it's collapsing everything into one water. That you don't need to do anything physically to manipulate anything differently. Okay, most of the time spiritual pursuit is presented as, oh, you have to collapse everything and you just have to have blank mind and sense of expansion, and this imaginary mode we enter into. This is the most sane thing. You don't need to change anything physically. You just need to shift your attention. And what you discover is all that is here is one. There is no second thing in the universe. Okay, So therefore, here he says that evam cha, both in that lakshyartha, in both lakshyartha comes to what? Awareness. What are the vachyartha? Vachyartha is, one is individual, the other one is Ishvara. Okay, like just to give you a mathematical example, easy, very easy mathematical example. When I say 5 is equal to 5, is it an equation? It's a statement. It's not an equation, right? But if I say 3 plus 2 is equal to 6 minus 1, is it an equation? Yes, right? Why? Because as Nandita very rightly says, it's a statement. 5 is equal to 5, there is no equation. Okay? When two sides look different but actually resolve at one point, that is what we call equation. Okay? So that means 3 is different from 6, plus is different from minus, 2 is different from 1. Okay? What is the resolution point? You can't say that 3 plus 2 is equal to 6 minus 1, therefore 3 is equal to 6. Can you say that? No. Can you say plus is equal to minus? No. Can you say 2 is equal to 1? No. That means you are trying to resolve it at a wrong point. You get all mixed up. Okay? Where is the resolution point? In 5. So 3 plus 2, which seems like a different thing, actually is 5. And 6 minus 1, which looks very different from 3 plus 2, is also 5.
So the content is the same. When you resolve the content of both, then that is
Exactly. So when you are coming to 5, you are not changing 3 plus 2 and 6 minus 1. That remains different. Okay? Same thing. When you resolve the equation between you and Ishvara, the forms remain different. The forms don't become one. You remain this little individual as though what? Awareness as though confined to one body and mind. And Ishvara remains what? The laws which has not only made your body but the bodies of everyone, and also governs the whole universe through series of laws. That difference remains. Okay? What you come to know is the whole thing is play of one awareness, which is free from being both.
Free from
Being both.
being both.
Okay? This is Vedanta. Okay? So therefore, here he says, right? Evam cha jiva ishvaryoho chaitanya rupena abhede badaka abhavaha. The resolution point of jiva and Ishvara is what? Chaitanya rupa. Chaitanya rupa is what? That awareness. At that, from the standpoint of awareness, then there is a complete equation. Okay? That nobody can negate.
What did you say is Chaitanya Rupa?
In form of Chaitanya. Chaitanya is the what we call the Lakshyartha. The Lakshyartha of Jiva and Lakshyartha of Ishvara is both Chaitanya. Okay. So here then he says, Evam cha Vedanta Vakyaihi Sadguru Upadeshena cha Sarveshu api Bhuteshu Yesham Brahma Buddhihi Utpannaha Te Jivan Muktaha Bhavanti. Jivan Muktaha means while living. It's a present participle. While living, the person is free. Okay. How? Who is this? Is what we call a wise person, a jnani. Okay. What is this wise person? Here he says that how did this person become wise? Here he says Vedanta Vakyehi. Vedanta Vakyehi means, right? What? Exactly. You need to use an appropriate means of knowledge to know that given thing. As I had said, everything in this world that you know with your 5 sense organs, okay, is what? An object. If you want to know the nature of I, because of which you can use your 5 sense organs, you have no means of knowledge.
Sorry, just say that again.
Okay? You, everything in this world that you know, okay, you know through your 5 sense organs, right? And the 5 sense organs, they only can capture what? An object. Through this process, if you want to know the nature of the knower, it's impossible.
You have to use the awareness.
Exactly. You need to not use the awareness. Awareness is what you find out, but through a means of knowledge, a teaching, which makes you see that. Yeah, exactly. Vedanta is a teaching which takes you to what? This understanding. Okay? So that means you need a means of knowledge.
Which is the Vedanta.
Which is that Vedanta. Exactly. Okay? So therefore, Vedanta Vakyehi. Now imagine you try to read a text. You read this Tattva Bodha without going through this, I don't know how many months we have passed. You just read the book and the translation. How much would you, it's all there. The book is saying everything what I said.
You would focus on the form.
Would you under, how much of it would you understand?
10%.
10%. Right? As Preeti says, if at all 10%. Right? So that means you need a live teacher. You need a guru.
But this actually doesn't even make that much sense. In this manner, due to the sentences of the scriptures and by teaching of the Guru, those for whom the vision of Brahman is born and all beings they are liberated while living. It's very difficult to understand.
Exactly, because see, it's a Sanskrit sentence, right? So it's a Sanskrit sentence. The Sanskrit has a different way of expressing, right? And it's a whole structure.
But
So that's why.
That you're preparing the mind to accept the knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. So this is why you need a teacher to even make sense of even this sentence, right?
Yeah.
So every sentence is like that.
And also we only look at the form. We won't even realize that there is a
The content,
at which
exactly.
the equation forms unless somebody has shown us.
Exactly.
Because you would say this is a wave, this is the ocean. Who is even thinking about that?
Absolutely. Right? And even our understanding of Ishvara is not complete. We don't even see Ishvara as Ishvara. Right? What is your understanding of Ishvara? Far away, not there, whatever. Right? So that means with this vision, how will you ever understand that? It's impossible. Okay? And your eyes, with your eyes, you can figure it out. With your ears, you can't figure it out. With your nose, you can't figure it out. Okay? You need a separate, what? Vedanta Vakya. Means a discipline of knowledge which makes you see this reality. Takes you. Okay? But the important thing is the teacher. Because the teacher can also create... Exactly. Right? This is an extremely intricate teaching which requires a very, very fine methodology. Okay? And the teacher, it's not somebody who comes and starts giving a discourse. This is not a discourse. This is a it's like going to a physics class. You need to be sophisticated. You need to be refined in your thinking. Okay, it's not some blah blah blah, oh everything is wonderful and everybody, it's not some blah blah talking. Okay, so therefore the teacher not only knows what Vedanta is talking about, is also equipped with methodology to make you see what has to be seen by you. Okay, it's an extremely intricate process, and really the teacher has to make sure that you don't make errors, because the minute you start making errors in your understanding, you're actually more subjective than earlier, more damaging. Okay, superficial ideas in the name of Vedanta, having no desires, detached from the world, these are destructive ideas. Material, spiritual, oh my God, it creates a mind which is bipolar.
The duality which actually
Duality doesn't
It's
exist.
antithesis of Vedanta.
Absolutely. It is antithesis of Vedanta, and we all buy into it and we don't even think about it. We are so gullible.
Because it's so out there most of the time. You're
Exactly.
bombarded with it.
You're bombarded with it. And as she says, right, it is so antithesis to Vedanta. Because it has a vision of oneness. Okay? And still the teacher talks and student also says yes, yes, yes. And the student feels, oh, I'm progressing spiritually. And also looks down on others as, oh, they are still material. My God. Okay, so therefore, this is not an ordinary teaching. You need a teacher who is competent and creates right meanings. At least, even if the teacher is extremely competent, still the mind's tendency is to project. It will continue to project, right? May not understand everything accurately, but at the same time, the teacher is not making the mistake. So at least the chances of you knowing are much higher than what? If you don't have a competent teacher. So that's why you need a Sadguru. That's why not just any guru. There is There is a prefix, Sadguru Upadeshena. The teacher who knows what he or she is talking about. Okay? Sarveshu Bhuteshu Brahma Buddhihi Utpannaha. Okay? So now, having exposed to this teaching, what do you see? Sarveshu Bhuteshu. Okay? There is one, as Chandana says, in all the beings, there is one content which is what? Which is there, which is invariable, which is free from everything, and that is what? Awareness, which is what we call Brahman. Right? What is Brahman? Why this awareness is called Brahman? Okay? The Brahman, the word, comes from the root big. I think I have explained this before. Okay? Big. Generally, big is used as an adjective. Okay? So when I use the word big as an adjective, then when I say big mountain, what is the bigness it conveys?
The form.
Huge bigness. When I say a big table, what is the size it conveys?
Relative.
Relative, right? So that means the word big is an adjective. The bigness that it conveys, it depends upon the noun that it qualifies. Right? Noun decides how big. Okay. Here, the word big is used not as an adjective but as a noun. What does it mean?
Absolute term.
Exactly. Excellent, Nandita. Okay. So therefore, big without any limit. How can it be big without any limit? If it is one of the objects in the universe, it cannot be big without any limit, right? If it is an object, what happens? It has specific time, it has form, it has time, space, it's restricted by time, space framework. It's not limitless. Object framework too. If it is something else, it is not this. Okay? If awareness is without any limitation, it cannot be an object in the universe. It can only be, as Chandana says, the content of every object in the universe. So that means that the forms do not affect it. The forms keep changing. Okay? The waves that were not there 1,000 years ago will never come back. The waves that are at present will not exist. The waves that are in the future, I don't know what the form is going to be. If my knowledge is dependent upon forms, then I will never know the totality. Can I know the totality? It's impossible to know the totality. But if all the forms have one content, which is always free from the attributes of forms, by knowing that content, what happens? I know as though all the forms. because the forms don't make any difference to the content. That's why you can know this awareness in its totality without any ambiguity. It is not dependent on you knowing specifics of the forms. Right? The forms don't matter. Whether the wave is big, whether the wave is small, whether the wave belongs to the Pacific Ocean, whether the wave belongs to the Atlantic Ocean, to the Gulf of Thailand, doesn't matter. The past, present, future, whether it's a tsunami wave or it's a little insignificant wave, it does not matter. So this is what it says, that with this Vedanta Vakya and Guru, you can understand that that awareness is in and through every form, okay, and is free from all the forms.
How is Brahman different from Atman in this?
Same. Ayam Atma, very good. Okay. Now, in Upanishad, there is one Upanishad which says Ayam Atma Brahman. So that means the vision of Upanishad is that this Atma, that you say I, is Brahman, is limitless awareness. So it's the same. There is an equation there. Right? So there, here he says that Brahma Buddhi Utpanna Te Jivan Muktaha while living. So now imagine this is what we call an enlightened wave. What is an enlightened wave?
Person who understands the content to be water.
Excellent. Right? Enlightened wave is the one who understands that my form is nothing but water. The other waves that I see is nothing but water. The ocean, which contains all the waves and regulates all the waves, decides from when one wave is going to come, when it is going to dissolve, is also nothing but water. Water is the reality. Okay. Now, the person, a wise person is, what has that person done? Remove the wave. Because awareness is not produced awareness. Very good, Nandita. It is not a produced awareness, is always there, the content. What has happened is, in our whole orientation to looking at the forms, we have forgotten the content. And we have no means of knowing the content either, because everything that we know is what? An object. We have no way to know the content unless somebody points it out to us and makes us see that content, which remains when everything that you objectify is variable. One invariable presence, awareness, available in your buddhi as invariable presence, self-evident. Okay, and frees it from the limitations that you have imputed on it, by making you see one is variable and the other is invariable. Okay, so therefore here he is asking Nanu Jivan Muktaha Kaha. Okay, so here he says, who is this person who is free while living? Okay, now he explains. Do you have time? You do? Or is it too much?
No, please go.
I can go ahead? Okay.
I just have one question.
Yeah, please ask.
Sangya Laksha, what was, I got a little mixed up there.
Which one?
Now the same thing.
Yeah.
Where you said Chaitanya Rupa, and you said that
It's a Lakshyartha.
It's a Lakshyartha of awareness.
No. Awareness is the Lakshyartha of
Chaitanya Rupa.
also, no. Chaitanya Rupa is the Lakshyartha. Chaitanya is Chit. Chit is awareness. Okay, so that means what he said is that this Sarvagnya Ishvara, which is in form of all these laws, right? It is all knowledge, all intelligence which is manifesting as the whole universe. Even that is the Vachyartha. That is the meaning of the word Ishvara. So what is the Lakshyartha? Lakshartha is that intelligence, in order for it to exist, what does it need? It needs awareness. Exactly. Right? So that means that the Lakshartha, like it's very easy. What the
So what does the word Chaitanya mean?
Chaitanya,
Maybe that will help.
yeah, Chit, it is coming from the root Chit. Chit means awareness. Okay? And this is an abstract noun of this Chit, that is Chaitanya. So it only means aware. It is an abstract noun of the word awareness.
So Lakshata equates to the Jiva and Chaitanya the
Lakshata is the implied meaning.
Exactly.
Which is the that concept that awareness is one, and that resolves the between Tat and Tvam.
Exactly.
Right?
From one confused person to another, what I have understood is that what she's trying to say is Lakshya, the intended meaning is awareness. That's all that Chaitanya refers to. Is that right?
Correct. So not confused, Nandita.
No, I was until you explained it
Okay.
as abstract noun and stuff.
So what here, in fact, just to make it simple, right? One thing is, what is Vachyartha of wave?
Lakshata
Wave. No. Wave, exactly. That form, wave, right? And what is Lakshartha of wave? Water. Excellent. Right? What is the Vachyartha of ocean? Ocean form. What is Lakshartha of ocean? Excellent. Right? So that means Lakshartha is where the equation is. Right?
So in this
Vachyartha is not where the equation
So
is.
in this case, when you're saying this Chaitanya Rupa is the Lakshyata, what is the
Vachyartha is Ishvara. First he explained about
Or the Ishvara
Jiva.
in this part.
Exactly. Because he first explained that Tvam Pada has Vachyartha and Lakshyartha. Because the question was, how can you equate Jiva to Ishvara? That is the question the person asked.
The Lakshyata of Jiva and Ishvara is Chaitanya.
Exactly. So what he explains is a very nice method. He says, in Vachyartha there is a Bheda. There is a difference.
What does pada mean?
Pada means word.
Word.
No,
Word.
W-O-R-D, word. Pada is word.
Lakshata of Jiva and Ishvara is awareness.
Yeah, Lakshyartha of Jiva.
And in Vachyata, there are two different things.
Common content.
The common content. Because what is extremely important is that if you resolve this, when there is an equation, you need to know where to resolve it. If you resolve it at a wrong point, you create a imagination. Because he is asking, how can I be Ishvara? What is his thing?
He is an individual.
Exactly.
So
Right?
does that mean Vyachata, in other words, that he thinks he's just the form?
Exactly. This is why this equation, in order to resolve, it makes a very important distinction between Vachyartha and Lakshyartha. Because that enables you to see where is the difference. There is a difference at Vachyartha level. At Vachyartha, what? Tvam is what? This little individual. And Ishvara is what? The cause of the universe. There is a difference. You can't resolve here. You can only resolve in Lakshyartha. Because both these forms resolve in one reality. Is it clear? Because it's very important to understand Vedanta accurately. It's not, it's a big responsibility to teach Vedanta properly, where it doesn't create concepts.
But yet, when you see Brahmins, they think they are better than Shudras and Harijans and.
But that,
That's the
Saloni,
way they see.
that is human. Every human being who's a wave always will have things to compare. Whether you call yourself Brahmin and others are Shudras,
you're not
or
seeing- but
based
you're
on
not
one
seeing-
minute,
yes,
one minute. Let me say, right? Or the class of the society, or the school that you have gone to, or the college that you've gone to. The wave orientation, as long as you keep the wave orientation, all these differences will remain. the only way to get out of it is to see all that is here is water.
Agreed, but that's what I'm saying. Those Brahmins are the ones themselves who are supposed
Yeah.
to have studied Vedanta,
Yeah,
who have
yeah.
created these differences in their pursuit of power.
Well, I don't know, but that's a huge problem, and that requires a lot of analysis of what are the causes and whether they have understood, or
Because when you see a Harijan, you see a Harijan. You don't see that he's the same as you.
Yeah, absolutely. See, but the thing is that, I mean, people are misguided. It's true, right? And everybody is misguided. So now the whole thing is that you're right. So that means you only can become wise, but those people who really believe that, they are not wise. Obviously, they are not wise. Yeah.
So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
that they are
sure,
supposed to be the wise of society.
But what happens is that, there are lots of other problems attached to it. So we'll talk about it some other time. But you're right. I mean, it's true that the person who really understands, there is a nice, what you're saying is absolutely true, right? There is a very nice text called Manisha Panchakam. Okay, and in that Manisha Panchakam, this Adi Shankaracharya, who is the biggest scholar in this Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, there is a story. Okay, the story was that he was going in a forest, and this one kind of a thief or some burglar or somebody came, and he was like shunning him, and that burglar or somebody, whoever it was, right, was Lord Shiva. So he is asking the Shankaracharya, who are you asking to go from where, right? And who are you addressing? Who is this I that you think, right? So Shankaracharya himself was confronted with all these questions, and Shankaracharya understood that this was not an ordinary person, he was Shiva, and he just did namaskar, So it's a kind of you're right, that means one thing is that even if you understand, to have this perspective is something which is you have to make an effort. Okay, because these prejudices that we have, the discrimination that we have is so inbuilt in us, right? We may not be into this kind of but social class, we have our own way to make distinctions. Okay, and that will continue until we pay attention to, right? Attention to reorienting our whole thinking. Okay, like how you go to a cocktail party, people ask you where you stay, what you've studied, and what work you have, and all. These are all loaded questions, right? They are meant to put you in a assess. Exactly, right? The minute they don't fit, it doesn't fit into what they are looking for, their attention starts wavering, right? It's very obvious. Okay, so therefore, these orientations will remain until you become wise and make an effort to become wise and break away from our habitual thinking process, because it's so much inbuilt in us, right? Who is important, what is successful, all these messages that the society has given us, right? Not like somebody was saying, the ad agencies, they are not saying that the happy people are people who have BMWs. They are not saying that, right? They are not gross, but then they show the projection is such that in your mind, when you look at that, you associate success or happiness with what? They've manipulated your mind. They are very clever.
Yeah, the subliminal messages are the ones that they are trying to
and we have totally bought into these messages that the media constantly gives us, What happened?
So imagine an ad and you're in a taxi and you're looking so happy. It's not possible.
It's not possible, exactly.
You would be happy if the taxi takes you. In the last 2-3 days, I tried to take a taxi. The amount of taxi one day.
Yeah.
It's absurd. In our city, you just can't get a taxi.
Yeah.
Even though they all might be free.
Yeah, exactly. So they
say the Gayatri Mantra for the wisdom.
Exactly. Put the whole thing in and have some sense of humor in life. Really, you need to have sense of humor in life. Take it lightly.
But my only question, I don't know if we have time.
Yeah, please.
Like, when you said about this, a while ago we were talking about this 80% and 20%, and we only want to take what suits us, and then we create our truth and reality, and if it doesn't work for us, we say, and then we said that's why we ask, why you suffer, you justify. So what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to be 100% honest and go that path, and even if it doesn't work for you, or there's no solution?
So no, in every situation. So what exactly? What you have understood is right. Now, what is your question? I didn't understand.
The question is, suppose I do what works for me, even though I know that what I'm doing is wrong, but it really doesn't work for me. So I'm taking this other path, and I'm justifying that I'm doing this because it's not working for me. Even though I know I should be doing this, but I really can't because of my circumstances. So then you have to pay for it.
Yeah, then you have to pay for it, exactly. See, if you factor in, absolutely, if you factor in the cost, then you are objective.
But if I don't want to pay for it, I can keep doing good deeds.
There is compensation. Yeah, that is also possible. But then you still you can't totally.
Allow you to do something.
So that
so badly want to.
That is what the whole thing is for. That's why our dharma is not black and white. Our dharma itself, I will talk if we do Bhagavad Gita, I will talk about our whole vision of dharma. Okay, it's a very dynamic. It's very dynamic, and it's brilliant. So yeah, it is very nice. So that how does the law operate? It requires What are the different aspects? So now I will end with just now only few verses are remaining, no? So in fact next class I think we should be able to finish.
And then we start the Bhagavad Gita.
No, then we'll go to Alibag. Then we decide.
Have to go to Alibag.
Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.